All right, let's get into it. Now, this isn't going to be your standard history lesson. Think of it more as a master class in communication and in personal transformation, all drawn from a letter believed to be from St. Patrick himself. We're going to explore how he took the worst thing that ever happened to him and turned it into his life's purpose. It's a powerful story. You know, the entire story of St. Patrick, everything we know about him, really boils down to one single baffling question. Why on earth would you ever choose to go back to the place where you were held captive? To the very people who enslaved you? It doesn't make sense on the surface. So let's unpack that. To get to the answer, we have to go right back to the beginning. Before he was a saint, Patrick was just a pretty comfortable teenager living in Roman Britain. Now, in his own words, he was totally surrounded by faith. His dad was a deacon, his grandpa was a priest, but he's honest about it. He says he paid it little attention. For him, it was just something you did, not something you felt. And then, when he was 16, his entire world gets violently flipped on its head. Raiders capture him, and he's carted off and sold into slavery in Ireland. And this event, this one moment, created two completely different lives for him. He went from comfort and security to total slavery and isolation. But even more important was the internal shift. His casual, indifferent faith was replaced by a truly desperate one. You see, this period of incredible hardship, it wasn't just something he had to endure. It was a crucible. It was the fire that completely burned away his old, comfortable identity and forged something brand new, something deeply personal, right from the ashes of his old life. For 6 years, just think about that. 6 years he worked as a shepherd, completely and utterly alone. Can you imagine the silence, the cold, the sheer, crushing emptiness? It's in that massive, unforgiving space that he was finally forced to look inward, mainly because, well, there was nowhere else to look. And this, right here, is the turning point for him. This is the moment of his internal transformation. He says he started to pray, but not because he was supposed to, not out of habit. He did it because he needed to. And this is where that anger and resentment he must have felt, it slowly started to change into something else, a real sense of resolve. So after those 6 years, he does it. He escapes. But his escape isn't the end of the story. Not even close. In fact, it's just the pivot point. It's the one moment that sets him on a path not just back to freedom, but toward a profound and, honestly, an unbelievable calling. I mean, his escape story sounds like something out of a movie. He says he had a dream that told him to go, so he travels almost 200 miles on foot to the coast, and when he gets there, he has to convince this very reluctant ship's crew to let him on board. It just goes to show you, this new faith of his wasn't passive. It had turned into a driver for real, courageous action. So he makes it home. He's safe. He's back with his family. And he could have stayed there. Let's be honest, most of us would have, right? He had every reason in the world to just put that whole traumatic chapter behind him and never, ever look back. But then he has another vision. And in this one, he hears the voices of the Irish people, the very ones who had held him captive, calling out to him, asking him to come back. And this is the critical moment. His whole perspective just shifts. The place that was once his prison was no longer just a place of trauma. It had become something much more. It had become a place of responsibility. And this brings us right to the core lesson of this whole thing. When Patrick decides to go back, his entire method of communication is shaped by his time as a captive. He gets the people, he gets their culture, their language, not like an outsider looking in, but like someone who had actually lived it. So his approach was totally revolutionary for the time. He didn't come back like a conqueror, trying to force his beliefs on people. No, he came back as a communicator, using shared experience and just basic human respect as his main tools. He knew that if you want people to hear you, you have to listen to them first. You know the famous story of the shamrock, right? Well, it's the perfect example of his whole philosophy. It's less about some big miracle and way more about a brilliant communication strategy. He took this massive, complex theological idea, the Trinity, and he made it real and tangible using a simple plant that everybody knew. He made the abstract totally accessible. So as we start to wrap this up, I think it's really important to separate the man from the mythology that's been built up around him over the centuries. His real legacy, the one it seems he actually wanted us to remember, isn't about all the grand, spectacular stories. In his own writings, he practically begs us to look past the legends about driving out snakes and all that. He wants us to see the universal human choice at the very heart of his story, the choice any of us can make, to choose forgiveness over bitterness, courage over comfort, and purpose over fear. I mean, that's a lesson that's so much more powerful than any myth. His entire life story is about that one transformation, the transformation of a person, of a perspective, and of a place. The very location that was once the symbol of his deepest pain became the source of his life's greatest meaning. And so we end right where we started, but hopefully with a new way of looking at it. Patrick's story really pushes us to ask a much bigger question, not just about him, but about ourselves. In our own lives, when we're faced with our own prisons, what is it? What's that magic combination of faith, forgiveness, and perspective that can transform a prison into a purpose?